Wish I got myself a drink.
Hey, everybody out there in Twitch land, it's Doc and Lurch here today with Game Time. We didn't have one last week because, we had some issues going on with personal life, and Angel won't be here this week because it's his wife's or girlfriend's birthday, whatever, so they're doing that stuff instead. We might have actually even canceled this because the main thing we were going to do this week didn't fully pan out.
Yeah.
We were going to give you guys a review of the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Spoiler free, of course, like our normal tradition. The first one is always a spoiler free show. But because I'm the only one that actually managed to go see it, it would have been really one-sided, and we like to get the discussion going back and forth. So, you got me and Lurch here. We might even make it a shorter show this week, just to talk about a couple of things, mainly because of that. And there's some old holdovers that were going to be in last week's show that will be some of the stuff I talk about this week. So, that's about it. But we are here every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we talk about anything and everything going on in the nerdosphere, try to just, keep our fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the gaming industry, and those are the kind of things that we normally talk about. Like I said, Angel's not here, but Lurch is. Let's do a quick sound check just to make sure we sound okay, and then I'll click us over. Check 1 2, check 1 2, 1 2.
Chickity check.
1 2.
Chickity check.
1 2.
Chickity check.
Sounding really good. Okay. Let me bring up our chat monitor, pop out, so that we can see if anybody comes in the chat. Like I said, we might make it a short one this week just because without having Angel and with really
but we do have 2 episodes of The Flash and Superman and Lois to talk about.
Right. Yeah, we also both of us did not watch Gotham Knights, so we're not going to cover Gotham Knights today either.
Yeah.
It's just one of those days where a comedy of
so without going into too much about Gotham Knights, just what are your general thoughts so far about it?
It's a little early to make a lot of predictions yet. I mean, Misha Collins, whatever, the guy that played
he played Castiel on Supernatural.
Yeah, he was good. And the girl that's playing the Joker's daughter is kind of interesting, but I didn't really get enough to get much more of a feel for it yet. I can see why a lot of people aren't really super enamored of it so far, because they didn't give us enough to sink our teeth into. I mean, yeah, we did have an escape, and we were introduced to a new female Robin 3/4 of the way into the show, but we didn't even get a lot of detail really. They were also introduced to a new Alfred kind of character. It's a female governess butler kind of person that is the Alfred to the young Wayne's legacy.
Okay. Yeah, so
we didn't get a lot to sink into.
I read that they introduced a new character, like the main character is a new a brand new character that's supposed to be taking on the Batman legacy now.
Yeah, it's a new ward of Bruce Wayne. It's really new that he adopted. So it's not supposed to be Jason Todd. It's not supposed to be Dick Grayson. It's not supposed to be Tim Drake. It's not spoiler. It's not any of them. It's somebody new. And so that is interesting. I mean, that adds to it. It's further down the line. I think it would have been interesting if it was like Damian Wayne personally, actual son. But he can be a really dark, dark character, and so I don't know if they wanted to go that route. Um, I personally, we're not actually in the media section yet. We're not covering about it. We'll cover it a little bit more next week after you've had a chance to watch it. Angel don't typically watch these shows, so it'll be mainly between me and Lurch.
Yeah.
But we'll have 2 episodes in, and maybe they'll have given us some more to sink our teeth into by then. Because I felt, if anything, underwhelmed because they didn't do enough. In fact, they probably should have delayed Superman and Lois a week and gave us a 2-hour pilot. Just because when you're trying to get people into a new show, it's almost a better idea to do a 2-hour pilot and give us a little bit more to start out with to draw us in. I think that might have been a better route, but they didn't do that. So we'll see what happens. I mean, a lot of the people that have seen the first 6 episodes have said they were highly underwhelmed, but I don't always believe the critics.
Yeah.
Critics also, several of them are on there saying that the D&D movie's not very good, and I can tell you it's really good. Without giving any spoilers, I can tell you something. And the secret cameo is somebody you don't expect. It wasn't any of the ones that we forecasted.
Well, in the for Gotham Knights, I tried to find a reviewer who likes the other DC CW shows.
Right, and an Arrowverse fan.
And so, I try to, I don't care about the aggregated reviews or most reviewers and things like that about all that stuff, but I do try to, if I'm interested in looking up a review from people, I try to find reviewers that I know I have common ground with already.
Yeah, I should have looked up Pagey or DCTV streams because they usually are big fans of the Arrowverse. And so they would have given a different probably thing than some of the other reviewers. But I didn't look it up for Gotham Knights. So I don't know. Anyway, just getting on with the show. Like I said, we're probably going to go kind of light this week. There is a big, semi-big thing about the 3DS and Wii U store shop, which is is Lurch's main topic for the week. So let's go ahead and start there, and we'll go forward from that.
Sure. Yeah. So, for those that may not remember, the 3DS and the Wii U eShops, the digital storefronts where you can buy digital games and content for those 2 platforms, is closing next week. We've only got a few days remaining. I had the date pulled up. March 27th. Here we go. So on March 27th, 2023, you will no longer be no longer able to purchase new games or new content on either console's digital eShop.
Right.
You will still be able to download stuff you've already purchased, but you won't be able to buy anything new.
What about Wii U and 3DS titles for your Switch?
If you have them if they're available on the Switch, then they're still on the Switch store.
Okay.
But they're not going to be in the Wii U eShop.
So they're not going to
shop for anymore. Yeah.
Ports, but they will but you can't get them for the older consoles.
Yeah. So if they made a port for it for the Switch, you definitely can still buy the Switch version of the game. But a lot of games have not been ported over to the Switch or to even anything else. And so, interestingly, there is a YouTuber who went through over the last year and purchased every single game on the Wii U shop and the 3DS store. I think he spent over $23,000 buying every single game. I don't
Gamers
recall.
are very much completionists.
Yeah. And then reportedly, he then, after he bought it, he then donated all of those games to some sort of organization for, like, preservation or something.
Oh, nice. So kind of
I
like
don't know.
almost a
I'm not
video game
entirely.
museum kind of thing.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to really dig into that, and I haven't had a chance to actually watch the video, but I saw a preview about it, and I read a little bit about it. It's a really interesting thing that's going on. I do intend on going back and watching that guy's video. I've just been a bit busy. Like, I haven't been able to watch the Gotham Knights. But,
Yeah.
now, you will still be able to continue downloading games that you've already purchased. What you cannot do, though, in addition to not being able to purchase anything, you cannot download free software. So if there's any free software like demos or some sort of digital updates or anything that would let you redeem a game via digital download code, none of that will work. The only thing you can download is things you've already purchased that you can then download to your platforms.
So no new redemptions of any kind.
Yes, no new redemptions.
Mm.
And the key thing about it is, and the reason why you can continue downloading but you can't keep buying is it does cost the company money to have their system set up to let you keep spending money on them or whatever.
Right.
But
yeah, the e-commerce plugin part of it is an ongoing cost.
Yeah. Now, some people do worry a little bit about, well, how long are we going to be able to continue downloading these games? What kind of guarantees do I have about the longevity of that? And, I wouldn't expect it to be indefinite, but I do expect it to be several years. And that we have some precedent for that because the Wii store, the original Wii eShop, shut down in 2019.
Mm.
And even though you can't buy anything on the Wii store, you can still re-download things that you purchased for the Wii today.
Yeah,
and it's been 4 years since then.
And as was pointed out a few months back, when HBO pulled even like shows that people had purchased, then they discontinued those shows, and they even pulled the rights to those shows for digital people who digitally purchased them. Any digital content is really not 100% owned. It's more like it's leased because it's hosted on their servers. So at any time they can pull it, and that's the thing. So if you get content, it comes with an expiration date.
Maybe.
Yeah, it can come with an expiration date. Yeah, because they're not obligated to host it forever.
Yeah.
They can eventually pull down their servers, say we're not doing it no more, and then if you've not downloaded it, you're out of luck, Chuck.
Unfortunately, that's also a reality with some physical games today also.
Mm-hmm.
Some physical disc games.
The online support somehow. Yeah.
I have a PS3 game that I have the physical disc for that's completely unplayable now because it's an online only game though, and so the servers were shut down and it's unplayable.
Like older versions of Diablo, if they were to take down BattleNet, Diablo wouldn't work because you wouldn't have the BattleNet access.
So I know that's something that gets brought up a lot, and I don't think it's as bad as some people say.
No. For the most part, I think they are acting in good faith.
Yeah.
They just there's an
expiration
involved that they can't keep going forever.
Yeah, especially when you're buying it from one of the major publishers that's able to retain their equipment. They're still around.
Right.
Where you really come into problems is if you're buying it from a really small company that goes out of business or gets bought out or something. Then you start running into some problems.
And if they can't find a publisher to sell the server rights to, or don't come up with like private server code, then you can't necessarily play the games because of that. it's one of the reasons that games like WoW even have, private server code that you can buy to put up a WoW server, or some of the games like 7 Days to Die, you can put up a 7 Days to Die personal server and stuff because, the developers may not keep the servers going forever. So there's even legacy servers for things like EverQuest.
Yeah. Now, something else to consider is with a lot of these games, like these digital download games onto your handhelds and stuff, if you get a really large, SD cards for them, and you download them to your hardware, if they reach a point where they're going, maybe eventually, surely eventually you won't be able to download them again. But if anything happens, like you're talking about, if they were to pull the access to things, as long as you have it on your SD card, you can still play the game.
Yeah, you could have, because of the ability to pull out the removable SD cards and stuff, you could have an SD library like you used to have a cartridge library or disk library.
So yeah, you can have a little SD card that's got 30 games installed on it that you purchased from the digital store. And
I've seen some people with like the memory card.
As long as you don't lose those SD cards, then those games should be playable for you indefinitely.
Yeah, I've seen people with like the memory sticks from the old like PSPs and stuff that they'd have one of the PSP wallets and it would have several of the memory sticks stored in little pouches because of the fact that they would have all their game saves recorded, or like the old game save files for like the PlayStation 1 or the Nintendo, where you had a separate little plug-in cartridge where you put all your game saves on. And then people would have several of those memory cartridges and stuff just because they wanted to save all of their different save state files so they could do the same thing with downloaded game content. Definitely.
Yeah.
But that's good to keep abreast of, and that is one of the things we like to keep you updated.
Yeah.
Lurch will tell you if something's going on in the console world.
Yeah, and remember, even if you don't have an SD card to save them on today, if you can buy the Wii U and 3DS digital games that you're wanting to get, and some of these games are available in physical format, but are already cheaper in digital than they are in physical.
You can at least get them on your library.
Yeah, just if you're able to afford it, and it's not going to hurt you too much. If you buy it now before March 27th, if you buy it now and you can't download it later when you get an SD card, then you can download it and you're all right.
Yeah, anything you got left on your wallet for that, go ahead and cash in and get what you can.
That's another point to bring up. Something to let people know. You can't put money on your 3DS and Wii U eShops directly. If you want to put money on them, you have to make sure that those accounts are tied to your main Nintendo account, like what your Nintendo Switch might be, or on the website off your phone or your computer. You have that synced up, and then add funds to that account, and that will carry over to the 3DS and the Wii U stores. Right. That's how I just had to put like $300 on my 3DS, on my Nintendo eShop, Nintendo account, so that my 3DS was able to buy a bunch of Pokemon games. Right. Pokemon and Zelda and things like that, stuff I hadn't purchased yet.
I totally understand. And if you're like most gamers out there, most nerds, you tend to be a completionist, and if you like some of those old franchises especially, like Lurch just recently played all the older Final Fantasy games. And so he would rush and get them before they were no longer available, just because, limited window. And we don't like to use like junk emulators. We would rather use, official ports and stuff. Because we want to support the developers.
Yeah, and if we support the developers, this is an old conversation, but if you support developers, then the developers can get approval to continue making more of the games that you like,
Right.
more updates or whatever.
And that
And so,
developer keeps working, which means you get the content you like.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say about the 3DS and the Wii U shop. 6 days from today, from the day we record this. Not a whole lot of time.
Okay, let's see. Let's move on then. Like I said, we might end early, so we're going to go through our topics kind of quick. Let's see. Okay, let's see. We're not going to do the From the Vault yet. Let's do the Kickstarter. Kickstarter. Now, remember, I do normally want Kickstarters that have like 15 or more days, but this is the one I had prepped for last week, so it's down to 8 days. Okay. But recently, I haven't been finding a whole bunch that had long time periods left on it. So the fact that this still has 8 days, it's the Shadow Dark RPG, and it's an old school gaming kind of engine, but modernized. It is funded because it was only asking for 10,000, and it's got over 980,000. So it's 98 times funded, and with 8 days to go. But it's a little bit different as far as how it works. I'm trying to remember it because it's been a week since I really looked at it. Oh, among other things, it's got a mechanic in it. It's a tabletop RPG, but it does have a mechanic in it where things like your torches run out in real time. So there's actually a timer on torches and stuff, and they go ahead and use a real-time mechanic for that. So yeah, your torch only really lasts for I think it's an hour in real time. It is similar in a lot of ways to 5e games, but it's got a lot of old school kind of nostalgia mixed in with some modern stuff. Let's see, how's it different? Shadow familiar elements of classic fantasy gaming, but it is not a retro clone. A lot of new game design ideas have been emerged in the last 50 years, and they wanted to bring some of those concepts together with the nostalgic but not new adventuring system. So features include it does still have the basic core classes that you expect in most fantasy games. So there's a fighter, a priest, a thief, and a wizard archetype. It is D20 based, roll high system. There's no dark vision, so total darkness is dangerous. Nothing has like true dark vision. Treasure grants XP, which for some of the really older school players, first and second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and the basic Dungeons and Dragons set, each gold piece you found in the dungeon would also be worth an experience point, or 2 if you're a thief. So treasure grants experience points, but there's supposed to be a dead simple method for doing it. It doesn't go into details about it. It uses a roll to cast spell system, so magic is exciting and a little risky, kind of like how wild magic is in current D&D, where sometimes magic might like flub or do something different. This one has a roll to cast system, so you can fail at casting spells, and there may even be magical consequences. It doesn't go into detail to tell us what it is. But they have a simple distancing system, so instead of measuring feet or yards or hexes or squares, it's basically a close, near, far kind of scale system. Morale and reaction rolls have been added back in, because monsters used to have that in older games where they'd have a morale score, and if the morale, something caused a morale check, you might get them to run away because they were like a cowardly creature or something. It's got an always-on flowing initiative system. Now that makes me think of like Hackmaster, which has what's called the count, because you start the count and then the count is ongoing. And so an always-on initiative system means both in and out of combat, there's kind of an initiative order going on. And so if they do it well, that would be good. It uses this classic 6 statistics, 3d6 in order. It makes a point of saying, which means you might not get the skill set you want, like in D&D, but you can always modify that.
Is that what that means? I was trying to figure out what that meant.
In order. Well, in original Dungeons and Dragons, the very first books came out, you rolled the 3d6 6 times, and you had to put them in the order you rolled them. So it was strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma.
That sounds awful.
Well, it meant that like you might fully intend to make a wizard character, but roll up something with like an 18 strength and a 10 intelligence. And back then, there also were stat requirements for certain classes. So like you couldn't even be a wizard if you had less than 11 intelligence. So that character would either not be a wizard or would have to choose a race that gave them a bonus that would make them qualify. Or they'd have to do what they used to do, which was a couple of DMs there was an optional rule where you could subtract 2 from one stat to add 1 to another stat. So that was the only way you had to modify them. But quickly, that got changed, and most people let you put your stores in whatever order you wanted them.
Yeah.
Or they initiated the 4d6 minus the lowest roll system, and that, of course, came before the standard array / point buy systems that came much later. I like standard array point buy because it puts everybody on an even playing field, at least at the beginning, and then you separate yourself out by your role play, not just by those initial dice rolls. But this one's a much more of an old school feel for that. No skills, just ability checks and advantage, disadvantage. So they got rid of that long list of skills that you have. So a lot of the stuff they just tied directly into the 6 ability scores, which is how it was done originally. It started out with the 6 ability scores and a few like special class abilities like the Thieves ability chart and stuff. But anything else in the game, you basically rolled on against one of your stats to do it if it didn't have a specific skill. Then later on, they brought in the non-weapon proficiencies, which eventually evolved into the skills that you see today. They separated ancestry and class. I'm not sure. I think they might have meant race and class, or ancestry is the new word for race.
Yeah, I think ancestry is just another word for race, but I don't understand. Like 5e separates race and class.
And yeah, everything separates race and class. They haven't combined race and class since basic D&D. I mean, there was some class restrictions and stuff in 1st and 2nd edition, but they still, were pretty free-flowing as far as most of that went.
Yeah.
They randomized character class abilities, so it's like emergent character growth. So kind of like how, in a lot of video games now, instead of like picking your archetype and then that's the only path you can go down, as you level, you can sometimes level towards other builds and stuff. I think that's what the emergent character growth means. So, like, for instance, you might be a wizard, but you could...
Yeah, I'm not sure what they mean by emergent character growth, but I'm not a fan of the randomized character class abilities.
I don't know if randomized is the right word. I think it might be more of like a pick from a menu kind of thing.
It's the bolded word.
I know, but they might be misusing the word. because people do that in advertising all the time. It's got low hit points, so it's fast and deadly combat. I'm not a huge fan of that because I want a few more hit points at first level so that that new character you just built and wrote a background for doesn't die in the very first encounter. I like you to have. I like you to be able to survive 2 to 3 hits.
Dude, honestly, I have a hard time working up the effort to build a background until I'm at like level 3 and have a sense that he's going to survive more than the first round.
That was a long thing as the game evolved through the years because it got to be where people didn't even want to do their backstory until they knew the character was going to get to 3rd or 5th level and had a few hit points. And then a lot of players started even, the DMs would say, okay, we're starting a new game. Start at 3rd level. Let's go ahead and just start there because they wanted them to have a few more hit points. It wasn't about the abilities at 3rd level. They just wanted them to have the hit points. So they could survive long enough to really feel like they had a character that was going to make it outside their front door. A house cat could kill you when you were a first level wizard, because the first level wizard in first edition D&D could literally have 1 or 2 hit points because they rolled a D4, and if they had no con mod, they could literally just start with 1 or 2 hit points, and a house cat could kill them. So I like for instance, 4th edition D&D gave a little bit of a kicker of hit points. You not only got the maximum for your hit dice, but at first level you got like an extra 8 to 10 hit points just to give you a little bit more of a coverage, and I like that. And then there's a simple encumbered system with gear slots, so like a kind of a item location kind of chart on your character sheet, which they've done in other, not necessarily many fantasy games have done it, but a lot of like Mech Warrior games and stuff for role-playing games often had like hit location and storage location kind of charts. Car Wars had that too, where you would put where your storage capacity was on the vehicle and stuff. So something in an adapted system like that is what I'm assuming. But anyway, this looks like an interesting little thing. Now, it's only got 8 days to go, but you can get the PDF version for like $29. And it's available next month, April 2023. So really, there's not much wait if you wanted to try for it. And
not much wait at all.
Yeah, and the digital complete edition is only $55, and that's several digital books and adventures and stuff. It's got a really long kind of list for that one. And then for the physical core book, it's only $59, and again, available next month. And you get
the physical books are being delivered next month?
Well, actually, the physical books
July.
Next month is July. So you got a couple extra months to wait, but they're not charging you extra to get the PDF with that, or having 2 separate packs, one with just...
and you also get a PDF copy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is the physical, they're not trying to say, get the physical or the PDF, or here's another pack with both. They're immediately saying, if you get the physical, we're going to give you the PDF too, which I know is something that Angel would appreciate.
Yeah.
Because we've had discussions on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not a bad one. Like I said, there's only 8 days to support it. So, because I was going to introduce it last week, which would have been at 15 days, and but I didn't want to ignore it because it was really an interesting one. I like the cover of the book. The artwork is in a classic old school design. Looks like it's a good quality binding from what I see. And some of the concepts are interesting. If I was to back it back something this year. I haven't backed anything yet. It is one that would tempt me, and I did want to get back to doing a Kickstarter every week. It's just I've been having trouble finding ones with long enough campaigns to meet my qualifications. And Kickstarter is going through a bit of a slump right now, I think, at least in the gaming side of things. For those who don't know, Kickstarter campaigns, they're great, they're wonderful. We really support them because we like to support small developers. But one of the things a lot of people forget when they back a Kickstarter project is about 95% of the projects don't make it. Okay? And this is especially true with a lot of the digital products, like startup MMOs and stuff like that. They have great concepts and everything, but either they do not get enough backers, even if they make their Kickstarter goals, they don't get enough backers, or the development doesn't go their way through to the development cycle. And you're not promised anything. Even the rewards and stuff are only if it makes it through development. You are basically like a type of investor who does not get any equity in what you're investing in. You're just trying to back it to see it succeed. And we do want to do this because it is something that keeps the small developers going and gives us more variety in especially our gaming culture. But this is the thing. Now, me and my guild leader for my MMO guild, we were talking today about possibly they should come up with a new platform for something like Kickstarter or Indiegogo or GoFundMe, but instead of it being 100% blind investors, maybe it works with a publisher that publishes all these different games and stuff, and you're not only investing, but you get a little bit of equity in the company. So if it succeeds, you own a small chunk, or like through the system, if that game fails, a new game in their system might give like several keys for beta testing or whatever, and they might give you some of that as a consolation prize for the stuff not making it. You know, like when they take on a new project, the new project might give them like 250 keys that they can give out to some of their other people that backed a project that didn't make it, so that you get a little bit more of a feeling that you're buying into something, not just blindly donating to the development. And it would go through that, and the crowdfunder would also be the publisher of the game at the end.
Yeah.
And so they would have like their platform, and they would cross promote, and they would do things.
I'm not sure, but I think Legion M is something like that for film. Have you looked into Legion M at all?
I've heard a little bit about Legion M, and it does sound like that's kind of similar, because you do buy into a little bit of equity, I think. If
I think so.
If the good, you're still considered kind of a micro stockholder in the film.
Yeah, and I could be wrong. I haven't looked thoroughly into it, but I saw, like, I guess you could call it like an ad for it recently.
I think that was one of their big selling points, is the fact that if the project went good, the backers were, could possibly get a dividend.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting at. Is I think in through Legion M, backers are able to get a cut of the profits if the movie does well.
Right. And that would be interesting if we could start a crowdfunding platform like that for especially like gaming, because MMOs and stuff, Yeah,
it's like, so there's no guarantee, like there's no guarantees when you buy into it, but there's that chance that if things go well, that you could make some money back on it.
Well, and like we said, one of the other things is there might be some consolation in it. In, like, for instance, if the project that you backed fails, you might get a couple of the free intro keys for a new up and coming project. So at least you get something out of it for your support with that indie publishing engine. So, like, for instance, I'm backing Fractured, and if Fractured ends up dying on the vine, say that the same publisher also was publishing Wild Terra 2, the game that I'm currently playing, and I could have gotten a free beta key to at least beta test it.
Oh, yeah.
Or I could have got a free, like, vanity pack, you know, because they gave them X number of keys to give out. Because, you know, a lot of these promotional games and stuff, they give keys to give out while they're doing the promotion. This would just be a way to funnel those keys into people that have already shown they've backed projects like this before. You know, and those are the ones you want to funnel the keys to anyways, people who might eventually turn around and spend money on the game, and their friends will spend money on the game. Because if an MMO player comes to your game and they're a member of a guild that follows them, one player could turn into 500 players.
Yeah.
You know, some of these pro guilds have, you know, a couple of hundred players playing. You know, some of the old WoW and EverQuest guilds, you know, got into like 1,000 members playing the game. So if you can attract a couple of key members of the guild to come in and play your game, you could eventually open the door to a whole bunch. We brought like half the server population in Wild Terra 2 on the server we're playing now is our guild, because we brought a whole bunch of new people in. While we're waiting for Fractured to decide where it's going, our Wild Terra 2 presence, our footprint has gotten huge. I mean, we joined with another guild that was there, but now over half the members of the total guild came with us. They weren't there originally. So it's really something. And we're not talking huge numbers in that game, but if you go from having 30 people concurrently online a day to having 60, that's a real appreciable difference. So, you know, just remember it's just like we tell people to always support your friendly local gaming store, your local electronic stores to get stuff. Don't just buy everything off of Amazon and eBay and all that. Remember to support your small developers, and that means Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe, kind of thing.
Yeah. I'll just say on this particular project, the Shadow Dark, the art looks really cool.
I love the art.
I love the art. I hate the rules of it. That's not my thing.
Some of the rules look like they're probably not going to fit what you want.
Yeah, I don't like all the randomized stuff. Like to me, the Wild Magic Sorcerer is like the worst subclass in 5e.
It's one of my favorites.
Like the absolute worst. I'd rather be a worthless monk than a Wild Magic Sorcerer.
I mean, I've always been one of those people that likes games to have randoms. I want something random in the game because that makes it a game. You know, strategy and stuff is fine and all, but it's that chance for failure and stuff that I always want. So
yeah. I mean, there's always a chance for failure no matter what you're doing. There's a chance that your spell will miss. There's a chance that they'll beat the saving throw. There's a chance they'll be immune to what you chose to do.
Yeah, there is. But
then adding in the chance of accidentally blowing yourself up and your teammates is not an element of chance that I want.
I love that, but I'm a little bit of an anarchist sometimes too. I love the Wild Mage. That's always been one of my favorites since they first introduced it. back in second edition D&D, they added a version of the wild magic, and used to be in older editions of D&D they had things like there was a potion miscibility table where if you drank two potions too close together, because every potion had slightly different formulas and stuff. If you drank them too close together, you might get a potion or interaction, and you would roll on a potion miscibility chart. So you were only supposed to drink one potion in an hour. If you drank more than one in an hour, you had a chance of them having weird side effects. Kind of like how medicine has weird side effects if you take it too close together. And so I love those kind of elements.
Would that apply if it was two of the same kind of potion, like two healing potions?
Yeah, because you wouldn't necessarily know if both of them were made with the exact same formula. The DM might rule that you bought them both from the same priest, so they're the same formula. They might even have come out of the same batch. But on the other hand, if they were both found in a dungeon, one might include, say, monkwort, and the other one has nightshade in it. And actually, I think monkwort and nightshade are the same herb. But anyway, they might have two different ingredients that don't work good together, and so you get and I mean, sometimes it may just make you sick. All you might do is vomit or
I guess
sparkles or something. But other times people did things like their skin would turn colors or glow in the dark, or they would shrink or grow.
It sounds like when there's that much of a difference, it's not the same. It's not a health potion anymore. It's some other potion.
It's still a health potion. It's just
if I took two different Tylenols and the second one had different ingredients.
Yeah, it's different ingredients, but it's the same basic thing. It's for instance, in some MMOs, when you mix to make a health potion, one of them might use bat blood, and the other one might use ground up topaz. And they both end up making the same thing. It's just different costs involved because of the different ingredients and the different areas you got to go to search for those ingredients. This is the same thing, especially when you're dealing with something like magic potions, which, witchcraft tradition and voodoo tradition might have two completely different formulas for that same potion. Or an example in modern day, you got acetaminophen and ibuprofen. They're both painkillers. They both do similar things, but they have different ingredients and interact differently. That's the idea. And this is on a magic scale, so the idea can be expanded. So I like those little elements of random, but not everybody does, like you said. So it would not fit you. The artwork, though, is great old school artwork, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The artwork's beautiful.
Yeah, I really love the artwork. It's beautiful. I mean, if you want any doubt there, this picture right here, that is a classic D&D style party black and white sketch.
Yeah. If I tried to get into D&D back in the day where you just took your stats based on what rolled on that first roll in that order, and so there was a chance that I wouldn't be able to play a magic caster, I wouldn't have played it at all. I won't play D&D if I'm not playing a magic caster.
Like I said, what ended up happening relatively quickly is DMs at least let them either put them in their own order, or if they didn't like their character, they'd roll another character.
Yeah.
But then that got to where people would sometimes be rolling 5 and 6 characters at a time until they got the one they wanted. And that got to be tedious. So that's why we started doing the 3 dice 6 in whatever order you wanted, or the
I've created Lurch the Wizard. Oh, he's not intelligent enough. He died. Lurch Jr. the Wizard.
Another option that some of them did, instead of like letting them put them in any order they wanted, is they let them swap any 2 scores, so they could at least make the prime requisite for their class. So like, say they rolled a really high strength and a really low intelligence and they wanted to be a wizard, they would just swap those 2 scores and stuff. They still might be stuck with like a low constitution, which as a wizard was like a death sentence because they had up to 4 hit points otherwise. So you really wanted to up to 2 extra hit points from constitution, because back in the day, if you weren't a fighter, the maximum constitution bonus was +2 for hit points. So not only could you not get more than 4 hit points from your hit die as a wizard, because they used a D4, not a D6, but the most you could do, even if you had an 18 constitution, was another +2.
Yeah.
So that means you maxed out at 6 hit points.
In my current D&D game, my character would have had the lowest HP and did have the lowest HP as the sorcerer in the game until I found, and it was just a random, Angel or DM was just doing the magic item rewards or item rewards off of a roll, and I got lucky and got a amulet of health.
Right. But think if your first level character, which now gets a D6 plus your Constitution modifier, which could be up to +4, so you could get up to 10 hit points to start. What if the absolute maximum with your maximum Constitution was 6 hit points? I mean, that's just over half of what you could have now as a maximum at first level. And you could have rolled a 1 or a 2 because you didn't start with maximum, you rolled at first level. So, that's the thing. It was down and deadly in the very beginning. And some people miss that. I don't. I think that especially if I'm trying to talk a new person into playing, I'm not going to have them make a character, even if they don't write their backstory yet. They're going to invest some of their emotional energy into that character if they're going to be a long-term D&D player. I think that if you want them to connect to the game, you want them to make it past the first encounter. You want them to make a couple of sessions, hopefully, but at least a couple of rounds of combat. And if you're running with 4 hit points and the house cat swipes you for 5 and you're dead, because there's no going to -10 unconsciousness rule or anything, because there wasn't back then, boom. There was some other rules too. There was save or die mechanics. So if you failed a saving throw on certain things, you died. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Yeah.
There was the massive damage rule, so that if a single hit did more than 50% of your maximum hit point, you could have to do a system shock roll or die, which was a percentage roll based on your constitution. Hey, Miles Betta, long time no see. Discussion right now is a Kickstarter game called Shadow Dark, which is got 8 days left to go, and it's kind of an old school mixed with new school kind of game. And we were talking some of the nuances of old versus new role-playing games, because D&D is about to turn 50 here. This year is the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons. Yes.
Is it really 50 years?
Well, actually, the 50th anniversary would really be next year because it's 1974. So, actually, next year would really be the 50th. But it's about to turn it. This is the last year, because the very first copy of Dungeons & Dragons was sold on the last day of January in 1974. It was not delivered till February, but it was the last day of January was when they made their first sale of the very first OD&D book. So really, we're just months away from the 50th anniversary of the game.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
1974.
Yeah.
And I just did a quick search, and I guess it was a game. The game was derived from miniature war games with a variation of the 1971 game Chainmail, serving as the initial rule system.
Yeah, because TSR, which was Gary Gygax and Dave Aronson's original company, originally made war games. And Chainmail was the war game that they made, and then Gary got the idea, hey, what if instead of focusing on these big squads and battles and stuff in these war games, which we do every week, what if we were to focus on like the Adventures Party, like something out of the Lord of the Rings? I think he even actually probably quoted something very similar to that.
Yeah.
Then they came together and they wrote the rules real quick for Dungeons and Dragons, and the rest was history.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was
quite 50 years.
Yeah, 50 years of Dungeons and Dragons, which is why the D&D movie coming out right now is such a big deal. They're working on a D&D TV series, which I know Joe Manganiello is attached to. They're doing a lot of other stuff, some good, some bad, like of course the big snafu with the open gaming license we talked about.
Yeah.
But the rest is history, like you said, Miles Betta. And it is good to see you. We have missed you the last couple of weeks. We're probably not going to have a full-length show this week. I don't know. Angel's not here. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, we're going to move on.
If you didn't notice, I apologize for making like weird sounds today, but I managed to hurt my finger today. My middle finger on my left hand.
I fell today, so don't feel bad. I tripped reaching for the light to turn it on in the living room because I was rushing to try to grab my phone and my glasses to go to the bathroom, and I fell. I landed on my hip, so I have a bruised hip myself.
I'm not sure exactly the extent of the damage. I hurt my middle finger while bowling. It's swollen pretty good. But we got it wrapped up to help alleviate the swelling.
Oh, Critias Gaming, hey, long time no see. Yeah, I'm still going. We do this show every Tuesday from 8 to 10 Central Time, where we just talk about all things in the nerdosphere. And then I've been playing recently Wild Terra 2, and we're waiting for Fracture to come back from some closed development. I haven't played any old school RuneScape or EverQuest in a while. But it is good to see you. Welcome to the channel again. Always great to see some of my old supporters come back. And just as a reminder for everybody, the channel is still dedicated to Extra Life. That means anything I make on the channel financially, 50% off the top, rounded up, goes to Extra Life, which is part of the Children's Miracle Network, helping kids with long-term hospital conditions. So just remember that if you ever decide to either subscribe or gift a subscription to somebody. I don't even know if this was the account I used the time I saw you, haha. Yeah, I remember Critias Gaming, but I think you originally came in with a different name, and then you later on came in with Critias Gaming at least once or twice, but it's been a while. Not working at the moment, good to know.
And thanks, Miles Betta, for the well wishes for a speedy recovery. Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah.
Because I'm left-handed, and I can't hardly use my left hand right now.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times where the new kitties have gouged the fingers in my primary hand, and then I have trouble because the sensitivity of the pads gets weird because of the poking and stuff. Also, if I understand you're not working right now, one of the benefits though of a Amazon Prime membership, if you have one, is you get one free Twitch subscription every month, and that puts $1.25 into Extra Life's pocket anytime you do that too. Just to let people know, it's a semi-free way to support if you already have Amazon Prime. A lot of students get it for free for a year, but by no means is anybody obligated to do anything as far as financially backing the channel. I just would like to point that out. And a benefit that some people didn't know about with Amazon Prime this month was they got an invite to watch the D&D movie last Sunday, almost 2 weeks early. And I actually went. Lurch and Angel, my co-hosts, were supposed to go, and they had a snafu at the theater. The wrong tickets were bought by a girlfriend, I guess. And it was sold out, so they couldn't transfer them to the right tickets. But that's another benefit of Amazon Prime. So a little bit of a plug for Amazon Prime membership. How was it? It was fantastic. We're not going to go into any review because I'm the only one of the three of us to get to see it, so it would be very one-sided for the discussion. But I will say it had the feel of a D&D campaign. It had the fast-paced action that you kind of expect. The comedy was there. And they did show a few more classic D&D creatures than were shown in the previews.
Good.
I think we get cinema tickets in the UK. No, Amazon Prime, a lot of their benefits like that are the US only. It was through a system called Atom Tickets through Amazon Prime. And I don't think Atom Tickets works outside of the U.S. But it was select theaters. Most of the theaters only had one showing of it, period, like at 2 in the afternoon. There were two theaters in this area, one in Springfield itself and then one in Ozark. I got in Springfield, and then my co-host tried to get their tickets, and they were sold out in Springfield, and then went to Ozark. Then they ended up getting the wrong movie tickets.
Take it easy, Critias Gaming.
Yes, I gotta go. Just stop in to say hi. It's great to see you still going. I'm so proud of you. I gave up after a couple of months because I never got viewers. You know what? I don't get a ton of viewers, but we keep going for the few that we get, and because we like our subject matter. We want to talk about this. And you never know. We might eventually pick up speed.
Yeah. So, are you ready to talk about The Flash and Superman yet?
We got the one from the vault first.
All right.
And that's going to be a quick one. The From the Vault is actually Broken Arrow. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a great movie. It's during the era of time when John Travolta was playing bad guys a lot.
Doesn't Broken Arrow, isn't that like military code for missing nuclear bombs?
Nuclear weapon, yes.
Missing nuclear weapons.
Nuclear warhead. Yes.
Yeah.
It is the call sign for a misplaced nuclear weapon.
Is that the premise of this movie then?
Yes. John Travolta and Christian Slater play stealth bomber test pilot for the military, and they go out doing a test run with the system with their stealth fighter over American park system, and John Travolta, who's the grizzled veteran, basically is trying to sell the nukes to somebody. And Christian Slater is the newer young pup who basically plays the action hero that goes to try to stop him afterwards. He gets forcibly ejected, and they do a bunch of stuff. And it actually turns out that Travolta isn't just selling the nuke. He was going to use it to ransom the country into paying him not to explode the nuke on American soil. And so
That's that's partially the plot of the PS1 game Metal Gear Solid
yeah,
to an extent.
but this is older than that, and it's a great movie. It's one of Travolta's best movies. He plays a really good bad. During the same time period, in a couple of years, he also played in Face Off with Nicolas Cage, and he was again a bad guy and a good guy in that too, because in Face Off they switch faces. So the good guy becomes the bad guy becomes the good guy.
Face Off, yeah.
Yeah. But those are the two that I mostly think of when I'm thinking of Travolta as a bad guy during those time periods. And he does a pretty good, like, conceited, older veteran kind of, even though he's not super old. He's older than Christian Slater's character is supposed to be, even though I think they're only a couple of years apart, really. Um, but it's a good movie, and Christian Slater's character um, hooks up with a female park ranger who helps him through most of it, and they go through like this big national park system with there's a cave and an old mine and there's a river and a few different things. There's an interesting scene on a train, but it's a good action movie to check out. And Broken Arrow is currently on Hulu, so you can see that on Hulu because I do like to tell you where to stream it.
Yeah.
And so that is my From the Vault. And again, it was my From the Vault from last week because I rewatched it that last week. This week I actually started rewatching Supergirl from the beginning. So
Yeah. I just recently started watching. I don't think I've talked about it on our thing. I started watching Breaking Bad.
I never did watch that.
The Bryan Cranston show.
Yeah, I heard about it. I never did watch it. I don't even know what the actual premise of the show is.
Well, to put it simply, Bryan Cranston plays as a high school chemistry professor who is way overqualified to be a teacher. He's one of the best chemists in the world. Worked on a project that won a Nobel Prize, I believe, in chemistry. But, the way things shook out, he ended up, after that, being a high school teacher and relatively broke. Anyway, and he gets cancer, which he discovers, I think, the day after his 50th birthday. Like, he has a 50th birthday party, and then the next day finds out he has cancer. Something like that. It was really close together, anyway.
Just a moment.
And,
drink?
He wants to... Huh?
I need to get a drink, otherwise I'll get sick.
Oh, yeah. And then he wants to... he's told it's terminal. He's not going to be able to survive it. And so he realizes he wants to leave money behind for his family so that they're not struggling without him.
Is that where like selling drugs or whatever comes in?
Yeah. So he starts making use of his chemistry knowledge to create the best meth the world has ever seen.
What happened to my Baja Blast?
I guess
to make some money. To make a lot of money. And it just, I deliberately avoided it for a long time because I was worried about the meth making stuff hitting a little too close to home because of my childhood.
Right.
But I decided to go ahead and watch it because it's also about a guy who's trying to deal with cancer, and something about that felt like it might resonate because of me helping I'm trying to help my girlfriend get through cancer currently. And so I decided to give it a watch, and goddamn, the writing is really good on this show.
I've heard it's one of the highest rated shows that has been on.
Yeah.
For the writing. It's supposed to be a big part of it. Although Cranston's supposed to be also really, really good in it.
Yes, Bryan Cranston is phenomenal in this show.
Yeah.
He is a great actor.
It's not the kind of subject matter I normally watch. Like I didn't watch Oh, I can't remember that other show where the housewife was a drug dealer. Um,
Was that Ozark or something?
no,
Weeds?
Weeds. I didn't watch that either. I don't
Yeah, I
watch
didn't watch
those
that.
kind of shows.
But here's
Uh,
something, I don't want to give too much away, but something that's real interesting about Breaking Bad is in most TV shows, almost all TV shows, your main character barely changes over the course of the show, right? Like, Soprano. Bryan Cranston talked about this in an interview about how when you watch The Sopranos, the main guy of Soprano, I don't remember his name, he's the same guy from the pilot episode as he is on the finale. We're watching him, react to different events and different life situations over the course of the show, but he's still the same person from day one to the finale.
I
But the writer of Breaking Bad specifically wanted to write a show about a character who dramatically changes over the course of the show.
Well, I think that's the earmark of some of the better shows that are out there. There is an element of evolution
Yeah.
to the character. Like we watched the Arrowverse, and Barry Allen did grow between season 1 and season 9. There is some evolution. He's got some consistency in character, but he also has evolution.
He's barely changed. The thing with him is like he over the course of the entire series, he's grown a little bit, but at the end of the day, he's still the same person he was in episode 1 as he is today. He's in new circumstances. He's got like a family and stuff, but like Vince Gilligan, the writer for Breaking Bad, said he wanted to take a good, honest family man and turn him into a killer. And watching him kind of like slowly lose his mind as he gets deeper and darker into this world.
Of drugs and stuff, yeah.
He has the same principal flaw in his personality that he's had from the beginning. His pride and his ego get the better of him a lot of the time. But he's far more calculating than he used to be. He's willing to go further than he's ever been willing to go. Things like that. He's a very different person. I'm in season 5 now. I'm near the end of the show. He's a very different person than he was in the beginning.
A better example of evolution of a character would be Sarah Lance from Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
She evolved quite a bit from the beginning to the end.
Yeah. Legends is kind of a unique show because it doesn't really have a main character. It has a rotating roster. And so with the rotating roster, you can have characters change dramatically over a couple of seasons, and then their story is kind of done, and then they leave the show and someone else comes in. That was one of the things I really liked, actually, about Legends of Tomorrow specifically.
I also pointed out Sarah because she was there from the beginning all the way to the end.
Yeah. Yeah. She wasn't like the main character in the start, but she was there, and she had a lot of growth and change over time. But that's actually that's probably one of my favorite things about Legends of Tomorrow and why I like it more than all the other CW Arrowverse shows is all those characters. Since no one character is the main character, all those characters dramatically grow and change over time.
Yeah, it was more of an ensemble.
Yeah. And I think that's probably my favorite thing is getting to watch the characters grow and change, and then once their story is done, they move on and they leave. Yeah. And it's kind of a beautiful process.
You can't be afraid to shake up an ensemble cast because a lot of people in these ensemble shows try to keep the same people all the way through.
Yeah. But like, if you look at Green Arrow, Oliver Queen, until the final season, where he finally started getting some change, he was the same person from season 1 until just before the final season, and then he started having some drastic change at the end.
The first couple seasons, he was a little bit more dark and less principled, and then he slowly started to become a little bit more principled.
I mean, that was less him being more principled and more Felicity enforcing more principle.
Right. Well, yeah. She changed him. But he did change a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, but
Little bit.
at the slightest breeze, he would go back to his old ways. I swear.
Right. Yeah, he was
So
also more of a loner in the beginning, and then became more and more. He leaned on
yeah,
Joel and his
well,
sidekick.
so like his environment changed, but I don't think he changed. His environment changed dramatically. So we got to see the same person in new situations and new environments with new people around him. But at the end of the day, he was still the same asshole that he was in the beginning. You know,
Well,
almost every one of his sidekicks, he shoots with an arrow.
he also started out with the goal of just getting back at the people on his list,
Yeah.
and then
His goal
he
changed
evolved.
over time. His goal
He
changed
evolved.
over time. His personality didn't really change.
Not too extreme, no.
Yeah.
Uh,
And and that's kind of what I'm getting at is
and yeah,
the
and Barry just gained confidence. That was
yeah.
the main thing that Barry did.
Yeah.
He
That's
became more of a leader.
Barry's main change is his growth and confidence.
Yeah, he became
But
more of a leader.
yeah, he became more of a leader. The problem with Barry is Barry will like learn a new lesson and then take that on for a few episodes and then suddenly forget it and
Yeah.
will be terrible at it again for a few more episodes until Joe has a talk with him and reminds him, and then he does really good for a little bit. So he's just in this constant up and down wave. So that his neutral, like his net ends up being about the same. He's just going up and down in his confidence.
Right.
At least he's not trying to go back in time every season again. So
And speaking of the Arrowverse, that's a good segue into our media section this week.
yeah,
It's actually already 9:21 too, so we've burned through quite a bit of
yeah,
time already. And I think we're mostly going to focus on the Flash and a little bit of Superman and Lois this week because, like I said, I'm the only one of the two of us that got to watch Gotham Knights. I watched it twice, and we kind of went over some of the key points of that without spoilers earlier.
yeah.
So we're not going to rehash that. We got 2 episodes of The Flash to go because we didn't have an episode last week. We didn't have a show last week. They did have an episode. So
Yeah.
we've got 2 episodes of The Flash and 1 episode of Superman and Lois to cover.
I want to start off. I want to say on the Flash. I enjoyed both episodes with one exception. On the second episode, the bad guy's plan was stupid as f.
Well, that was going to be my starting comment too. The newest episode of The Flash, and they told us they weren't going to do that this season because they had the limited number of episodes. This was a filler episode. It
Yeah.
really had nothing to do with closing out the series, really. In fact, it even retconned some of the stuff from Crisis because the one lucky girl or unlucky girl or whatever she's called from the episode died pre-Crisis.
Did she die pre-Crisis?
Yes, her character died.
Oh.
She didn't exist, and now she exists and is brought back for very little. I mean, like Barry and Iris are hardly in the show at all. It's really focuses more on Allegra and Cecile, and it has no real substance to it.
Yeah.
This episode was 110% filler.
Yeah.
And with only 13 episodes in this final season, there's really not room for it.
Then my feeling about that as a whole is it was a fun filler episode, but it was absolutely a filler episode. And so, basically, I mean, this plot is basically that this girl who has luck as her meta power, after the crisis, she came back with all good luck, and everything went well for her. She got to have a really good life, got engaged, met a great guy, literally fell into his arms, got engaged, and then suddenly, after getting engaged, her luck turned and everything was going horrible for her. And,
spoilers, by the way.
oh yes, we're in our spoilers segment now. Spoiler. And then, you know, I can't fault the show with the writing on this part because it's just bad luck. Because that's her meta powers reverse is all bad luck. She comes home and finds her fiance bleeding on the floor. I thought he was dead, but it turns out he was just terribly injured and put into a coma. And she collapses as the discovery of her fiance like that, just as the cops charge into the room yelling, freeze, put your hands up or whatever. I was like, God, that feels like a setup,
And
Which,
course,
I mean, it basically was.
Criminal, because she was a criminal the first time we saw her.
Yeah.
She's suspected in his death, and it looks like it's some kind of frame job.
The one thing I can see them maybe using this to set up is they introduced this mineral that can be turned into a device that can reverse people's meta powers.
And a one-shot device. And it's interesting because it's a one-shot, but it's not one-shot as in it has a limited time frame. It's just a one-shot until it loses contact. Which is very different.
That was really weird because when we first see it, one of the instances we see it, when we're introduced to this item, Allegra tries to use her light powers on somebody, and then they pull out the little gadget, and it absorbs the blast or the energy, and reverses it and blinds Allegra with her own powers, and then it gets fried out. Mm-hmm. And Chester investigates it, does some studying of it or whatever, analyze it, and then it reveals that it can reverse someone's powers onto them, but it's a one-time use. But what's going on with the lucky girl is she has an engagement ring that's made out of the same material, and that engagement ring, as long as she's wearing it, continuously gives her bad luck. Once it's removed, it then burns out. But until it's removed,
immediately, as soon as it left her hand, pop.
Yeah. And okay, I guess it's a weird explanation. I don't know how it's a one-time use, but it's a continuous one-time use if you don't take it off your hand.
That sounds more metaphysical than scientific.
Yeah.
A magic item you could see that. Science think it would just run out of a charge.
Here's the dumbest thing I'm having trouble with. The bad guy's plan was, after deliberately giving her bad luck, making sure her ring gave her bad luck, and then hospitalizing her fiance.
His brother.
Then, I think they were best friends or something.
No, I think his brother.
Abducts this woman, and then forces her to get a job at a bar as a card dealer for a gambling night. To run a private game that only deals to him so that he keeps winning because she has bad luck while she's held at gunpoint, based effectively to keep dealing these cards. How the hell would any casino allow that?
And the security guards at the casino are working for him.
Yeah.
Working for the house. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
He would have been better just to have stolen the money.
Yeah, or, I don't know, force her to go and play on his behalf and be like, I'll kill your fiance if you don't do it.
With her luck working.
Without the rock on her hands.
Yeah. He'd been better off sending her in with her luck working and making her win some money. With some kind of story about why he needed it.
Why do you even need the bad luck mechanic if you have the dealer and all the security working for you to deal you good hands?
Yeah, you don't even have anybody there to witness the fact that she keeps losing to you except the one security guard you're paying.
Yeah. That whole element of the episode just kind of completely broke the thing.
Yeah. Like I said, this episode, and I normally love The Flash. I actually prefer The Flash even over Legend of Tomorrow. Even though I liked Legends of Tomorrow, The Flash was always my favorite CW show. This one was hard to stomach because it felt like an afterthought. They didn't really think out the plot. The villain was very lackluster. The character, they brought back somebody which had to retcon the greatest crossover in television history. You know, Crisis on Infinite Earth, they had to retcon some stuff to bring somebody back, which they, unless they're setting it up for a later episode, like you said, really,
yeah,
the introduction of this element could have been done better.
I have to imagine that they're intending on making use of that device or element somewhere else in the show.
That's got to be the reason for the episode, because they only get 13 episodes to finish this show out.
Yeah.
Wasting a whole episode on this.
The Flash was only on screen for about a minute and a half.
Right. He was just the beginning of the episode and then the very end of the episode. And that was it. I mean, he had what, 5 lines? Maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, basically him and Iris started off the episode going, yeah, we're going to go on our baby moon, where they're going to, like, celebrate being pregnant by having sex on a beach or something. And then they zoomed off.
A no-zooming vacation.
And then immediately zoom. And then they zoom back at the very end of the episode. Like, hey guys, what's going on?
And then the only other thing is Cecile, it also showcases the fact that Joe and their daughter moved away, which we knew was going to be set up in this season because the actor who plays Joe is leaving the season.
So, yeah, and that actually happened in the previous episode. Them leaving happened at the end of the previous episode. It was just her trying to live this double life of going and seeing her kid on the weekends, and failing at that and struggling at that, you know?
Especially since it happens to be her birthday, the kid's birthday. And that was the big impetus that she had to get there to make the traditional birthday breakfast for the child. And she missed that, which is the other thing that was kind of confusing to me. All through the episode, I'm thinking, well, they've got all these metahumans that they deal with. Somebody could have shown up and teleported her there because she missed her train.
They have the means to teleport.
You
know, she could have been teleported to her farmhouse, made pancakes with her daughter, spent half an hour out of the day, spend half an hour with her daughter, and then come back.
You know, off screen, they wouldn't even have had to show it, but they could have brought any of dozens of different supers that they've interacted with in the past that could have got her there. A speedster, Supergirl could have flown her there. Vibe could have showed up and teleported her there. Chester could have invented something to get her there.
I have to ask, so here lately, in these last few episodes, they've been teleporting a bunch with this, like, blue cloud stuff.
Yeah, and they never explained it, really.
Okay, I was just thinking, did I forget something? Because I have no idea how they're teleporting right now.
I thought I missed something, too. I mean, I saw the bad guys doing it, and that was part of the Wayne Tech. But the Soups have been doing it, too, and it hasn't been explained. It's not Vibe. It's not Speed Force. They didn't explain it. Who has that power? And that's another thing.
Like, if it was the old school Vibe technology teleporting, I would get it. But it's not. It's not the same kind of teleportation. It has some sort of a blue cloud, like a fucking Nightcrawler.
It's like a magic,
like a magic smoke bomb from ninja movies.
Yeah, Ninja Vanish.
Yeah.
It's very much a Ninja Vanish kind of moment that they never explain.
Okay. I was wanting to ask about that because I keep seeing it and I keep thinking, I'm trying to like pinpoint if there's like always a specific character in part of the teleportation, but I haven't been able to pick up who it is.
All I can think of is it's some kind of maybe tech that Chester came up with, and they hand waved it and didn't tell us about it.
The screenwriters forgot to mention it anywhere?
They forgot to give us the backstory to the teleport.
If anyone watching this, whether on here or later on YouTube, happens to remember or know where that blue cloud shit's coming from,
did we miss?
Put it in the comments. Let us know.
Did we miss a scene? Because we do sometimes miss some scenes, and I have a tendency to fall asleep on parts of the episodes because of my chronic fatigue.
But I would have thought that one of the two of us would have known the answer to that.
I was wondering about that too. And the thing is, this episode might have been better served instead of spending the time on Cecile and this. They could have spent more time exploring Keon's powers. Because
was the Keon powers, was that the B plot of the bad luck episode?
No, the Keon's powers is really the tail end of the one before. I think all they did was kind of gloss over Keon a little bit here in that. I don't remember if the kiss was this week or last week.
I think, okay, so in the previous episode, they realized that Iris is pregnant, and, well, Iris is like, I'm not feeling well, and Keon was like, well, obviously it's because you're pregnant. Mm-hmm. Because Keon somehow was able to tell.
So this
week, this episode was, the B plot was the Ice Boy and Chester trying to help Keon figure out if she has powers.
Chillblade.
And Chillblade. And they have figured out that she has some sort of powers because she did make it snow indoors on accident.
Maybe.
But she's not meta. She doesn't have the meta genes or whatever, the meta dark matter material or anything like that. So they don't know the cause.
Well, they did determine at the very end that she's not human.
Yes. What was it? They said she's missing 56 out of the 57 key markers to indicate you're human?
Yeah, she has a different genome completely. And so that, and they almost implied that it may not have even been her that caused the snowing. It might have been Chillblade. Somehow, they implied, they never said for sure, but that she has some powers.
Yeah. She definitely has her power.
And I think it's, like we've said in previous episodes, it's going to be similar to her character from Sky High. The same Pennebaker played the character in Sky High, except she could control plants and plant growth. I'm thinking she's going to have a nature-based power set. Very Gaia power. So she's going to be more like an classic elemental mutant type.
Yeah.
So she's going to be like Poison Ivy.
I'm wondering if we're going to find out that she's like from an alternate dimension or something, kind of a thing. Introduce that out of a multiverse situation.
Another multiversal version of Pennebaker. Because if you remember, Killer Frost was originally a multiversal version of Pennebaker's character, and then later on, she started to evolve to having the multiple personality of Killer Frost inside the same body, and then they brought out that Killer Frost, but that Killer Frost ended up reforming to become just Frost, where the first Killer Frost they encountered was a multiversal evil Killer Frost.
Yeah.
Which goes along with the comic books.
Yeah.
Pennebaker's a great actress.
So that was probably the highlight of the movie. Like, seeing the bad luck, good luck girl, she was kind of amusing. The highlight of that episode is... The highlight of the episode is probably Keon's little story arc that she's got going on. Overall, though, God, the climax was just terrible, though. But the other episode, the Mask of the Red Death Part 2, I think that was the title, right?
That was the one that we missed from last week that we were going to go over.
I I liked that episode quite a bit. That was a good one.
We get Javica, whatever her name is. I can never pronounce her name. That plays Batwoman.
Yeah.
The Batwoman 2 of this.
I have one complaint about that episode, and it's also in the climax. But otherwise, a good episode, I think.
She plays the character of Ryan Wilder, which is Batwoman 2. We actually get not only Red Death, but we get the actual Ryan Wilder from this continuity in the episode at the tail end. Batwoman
gets to make a dramatic entrance and help fight Red Death at the very end of the episode.
Now,
after Red Death basically
gets captured. Now, we do know from some of the hints about the finale episode that Red Death will be back. But Red Death has currently been captured in that first chapter of the season is closed.
Yeah, she's been captured and depowered.
And I know there's supposed to be 3 total chapters, I think, this season. But this chapter and the final chapter are supposed to feature Red Death, among others. In fact, the last chapter, they talk about us having a big, massive speedster thing. So we're going to get several different speedsters. But we don't know.
I hope it doesn't turn out like that one season that had, 6 of those white super speeders versus the whole family of Flash super speedsters that looked like a bad Power Ranger episode.
The Zooms.
And they made swords and daggers out of lightning.
I don't know. I know we're supposed to get what's his name, Cobalt Blue, and we're supposed to get a couple other characters in there. We're supposed to get another visit by a version of the Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
Before the end of the season.
So this episode that we just had, the Mask of the Red Death Part 2. Because the previous episode, Master of Red Death Part 1, ended with Chillblade seemingly being killed by the baddies, by the bad rogues, as Flash is being teleported away with his side of the rogues.
With his rogues gallery, yeah.
Yeah, his rogues, his friendly team squad rogues.
Yes, rogues gallery, yeah.
Yeah, his own rogues gallery. Well, I mean, rogues gallery is kind of a broad phrase for all of his villains, though, so it's kind of rough.
So his team was comprised of ex-rogues.
Yeah, the ex-rogues.
And so was her team was ex-rogues. It's just rogues. It's just his were on the good guy's side for a little bit.
I mean, her side were new rogues, honestly.
Yeah, there were new versions of old concept rogues. Because it was a new boomerang.
Anyway, so Red Death and her evil rogues show up at CCPD and take basically CCPD hostage, while they then start dropping in sentinels of Red Death robots all around. But they're not really robots, they're psychological illusions that have the ability to kill.
Very much, it's like a psychic Ultron.
Yeah, it's like a psychic Ultron. And we end up finding out that the reason she has all this extra psychic power is because she is borrowing
Gorilla Grodd.
Gorilla Grodd's psychic power.
Which when I saw Gorilla Grodd, he was actually becoming a hero because of Barry's influence. Yeah,
and so Barry goes to visit him, and we learn that Grodd can't find any other sentient gorillas. He's been looking for 3 years and hasn't been able to find a sentient gorilla to rebuild his city or anything, to be with anybody. So he's been alone, and he's angry at Flash and feeling abandoned. And,
after Crisis, all the intelligent gorillas devolved back into unintelligent gorillas, and he hasn't been able to find any more intelligent gorillas.
And so, but Barry manages to talk him down and agree to help Flash instead. And so he cuts the psychic power link that he was giving to Red Flash, or Red Death. And also, Flash's speed has been set. Yeah. Well, I forgot a part. They're trying to find out where, Cecile tries to use some, psychic location stuff to find, find Red Death.
Mm-hmm.
And when they find out that she's at CCPD, but then also find that Chillblade, Mark,
is
still alive and being held prisoner and being tortured, or at least suffering pain, back at their base.
Bait.
Yeah, so Flash goes there. It ends up being a trap that Barry gets caught in where the last of his speed gets taken away. So now he's facing Grodd without any speed. But
we also find out, related to this, which is why I'm interjecting it, that Red Death's speed is artificial, that her suit is a type of armor that she can remote control, and that because her speed is artificial, she needs the Flash to power the cosmic treadmill.
Yeah, and that was all in the first part, in the Red Death, Fast of the Red Death Part 1, the previous episode.
Well, no, because the capture happened, and that's when we found out that he was needed as the power source.
Well, we learned about that when Barry was captured.
Right. And
not when Chillblade was captured.
That's true. He was captured there. I'm confused with the two episodes.
Yeah, you're mixing up the two episodes a little bit.
But yeah.
But that's all right.
It is a part 1 and part 2 episode, so it's
yes,
natural.
It is. And so because with all this, Grodd ends up we were reminded that 3 years ago, Barry put a little bit of his Speed Force spark into Grodd, and Grodd gave it back to Barry to kickstart his super speed again. And so that he's able to come back, and then with all the psychic being siphoned away, she no longer has access to all of that crap, and it makes the Speed Force psychic blast lightning storm end that's terrorizing the city. And then I'm trying to remember Barry basically just outsped, I think, Red Death and took her helmet and chest piece off while she was distracted, right?
Right. And because he had his Speed Force back and she was distracted and did not have the psychic ability that would help her kind of know what was coming, she couldn't counter him.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so I remember part of it was the two of them were chasing around the city, throwing lightning bolts and shit at each other for a little while. And then they got the upper hand on her because suddenly the 4 rogues came out of nowhere and hit her unexpectedly. Which, that's one thing, is like, how do they know where to be? But I guess Barry led the fight to where they were.
Right.
That had to be the case. Barry led the fight to them. And then after that, she's about to do something, and then the real Batwoman comes out of nowhere from the shadows, as you would expect, and kicks her or whatever.
Last minute saves the day, yeah.
Last minute saves the day, and then with that, Barry's able to strip her of her chest piece and her helmet, which prevents her from accessing her suit or her super speed. And then basically the day is won at that point.
Yeah, because that allows our Batwoman to beat that Batwoman.
Yeah.
Because Ryan, from our time, has got, the good guys on her side.
We didn't get to find out why she went missing. We have no idea why Batwoman went missing. That was never explained. But I think the closest we got to an explanation was her asking or thinking, Iris, thanks for seeking me out, or something like that. And I'm a fan of your work. So evidently Batwoman reads the whatever the publication is that Iris writes.
We found out in the first half that Iris was Ryan Wilder's best friend in their multiversal dimension.
Oh yeah, in the other universe, yeah.
So we end with the seeds of that kind of relationship being planted with Ryan Wilder saying, "Hey, we got to meet up and become friends and do this more often."
Yeah, that's
So
right. They
the
did.
seeds of that relationship is being planted because they were such good friends in the other universe, according to Red Death, that they're looking to possibly pursue that in this one, which is going to build up for the future crossovers, I assume. Now, I do know that I think the next episode is episode 7, which is the one they've been talking about too, because this is supposed to be the Dreamer crossover episode coming up this week. And it's supposed to feature Iris, not Barry, so much.
Huh.
But there have been lots of talk about Dreamer from Supergirl, which is one of my favorite of the Supergirl characters.
He's an interesting character.
Well,
Definitely.
she's an original CW character. She was not in the comics until the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
She's a new one, and she was a runaway hit character. And she's supposed to come in for the next episode at least, and she's supposed to spend some time in some dream sequences with Iris. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's got me chomping at the bit because I like Nia Nal as a character. Yeah. Nia Nal is amazing as a character. And for anybody from Supergirl to come over, she's a good choice.
Yeah.
In fact, she's so popular that they've written her into the comic books. They're talking about starting a new run book for her. The actress that plays her actually penned at least one comic book for her already. So she's getting a lot of traction in DC. And so it'll be interesting where they go from here. And this has only happened a couple of times where a TV version of something has become that popular. The last time it really happened was Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn was so dead popular that she became a regular character, and she was not in the comic books before she appeared in the cartoons.
Yeah.
And
the 90s Batman cartoon.
Right, and then Nia Nal has now done the same thing, and you have to do one heck of an impact to go from the TV to becoming official comic book canon, and she's done it. So that's going to be something to kind of watch. So this next episode I'm really looking forward to. We only have a few minutes to touch on Superman and Lois.
Oh, yeah.
We only going to touch on it. We'll go into more detail next week. But the big thing is, I think the new Jonathan wasn't so hard to accept. He looked similar enough and had enough of a background role that they didn't really have to spend a whole lot of time getting us used to him. They just kind of seamlessly put him in, and I think it worked. And given the fact that it was for the health of the original actor, you got to understand.
Is that why they recast him? Was the health issues?
Yeah, the original actor had some mental health issues and could not keep doing it. And so he dropped out with great apologies and stuff that he didn't want to, but his health was suffering mentally, and so he dropped out. So it wasn't by any negatives between the cast and crew and everything. And you got to understand, a person always has to take care of their health. And so this new character actor, though, I've not seen him in anything else as far as I know. But I think that was the key thing for this episode, was I was wondering how they were going to fit in the new Jonathan. And I think the way they did it, for one, they picked somebody that looked a lot like the original Jonathan. That helped. and then the other main concepts is we start hearing about Bruno Mannheim coming back and then being investigated by Lois. Chrissy is getting used to the fact that Clark is Superman, and that even though he works for her now for the Smallville Gazette, he still has to drop everything to go rescue people all the time. So she's just going to have to deal with it. There was a
at least Clark's new boss knows that he's Superman, so she doesn't complain too much about him taking off. Yeah,
not like Terry White. And then there was the tete-a-tete with Lana's ex-husband and Chrissy. That was an interesting little side junket.
Yeah.
We get a very, very brief little thing between Sam Lane and what's his name's daughter, because he's of course her grandfather in their universe, and so he acts like he wants to get to know her and goes to a horror movie with her because they used to do that. And then we come to find out that Sam Lane on this universe doesn't like horror movies and was really just trying to recruit her for a DOD school because she's a super genius. And so that's a thing. And that was most of what... The other thing is we find out that Lana's daughter and Jordan are not a couple, even though we kind of had the impression that they were going to go back to being a couple at the end of last season, once she found out he was basically Superboy. But now she's putting him in the friend zone and stepping back, even though at the end of the last season, it sounded like she was going to be more accepting and actually was going to embrace him back again. So I'm not sure where they're going with this. It's going to be a lot of Jordan trying to prove himself, I think, and get back to possibly boyfriend-girlfriend again with her. Did I leave out anything of massive importance? I mean, we know Jordan returned his truck that his uncle gave him, but Jonathan kept his because he can't fly or anything. So
Lois has some sort of a sickness that we thought was a pregnancy throughout the whole episode until near the end.
Yeah.
When she got a phone call and they don't know what it is, but there's something that's making her have symptoms.
And the doctor that she's seeing is John Henry's sister from this universe.
Yeah.
Instead of from John Henry's universe. So, and she's like not real happy with, dealing with Lois because of the fact that Lois was investigating things. And
she's trying to find out more information about the man that murdered their John Henry.
And their John Henry was not a good person.
The John Henry was not a good guy. He was selling illegal weaponry.
It was Intergang, yeah.
Yeah, the Intergang.
Bruno Mannheim and stuff. In fact, she really made the appointment just to see if he'd had dealings specifically with Bruno Mannheim, because in the past, Lois specifically has tried to expose Bruno Mannheim as a bad guy leader of Intergang. And this is kind of a return to that, even though it's never been covered in the CW before, in this CW verse. But a lot of the things from Superman and Lois refer to things that we know more from the comic books than we know from the TV series because they didn't show them on screen. Because this is supposed to be after they've had the kids and after they had a lot of their Metropolis adventures. Would be interesting to see Lois pregnant again, though.
Yeah. So this episode was mostly focused on family stuff.
And I think
And
it was to ease the new Jonathan in, as I think the big goal of this episode. Oh, the only other big thing that happened was when Jordan showed up in, was it Kuala Lumpur, to stop that rigging
train from falling. Yeah.
When he was told to go directly home, and he excused it, he's saying, I got lost.
Yeah. I think he was there already because he was looking for gifts for his not girlfriend.
Sarah.
And then heard the trouble. I think that's how he beat Superman there, because he was already there shopping.
Right. That elephant.
And he got into big trouble for breaking the rules. He's not supposed to go out and do heroics without direct permission from Dad, you know. And so then the very end scene of the show, or near the end scene, when Superman is fighting, what's his name, Adam Man or whatever, which was a cool fight scene. But while that fight's going, Jordan is hearing it. And his girl, what's her name now?
Sarah
is like, is there trouble? Do you need to go? And he listens into the fight for a few more seconds, and he's like, no. And he knows he won't to. Yeah, he's not allowed to.
He knows he's not allowed, and he's going to get bitched out if he does, even if he has to save his dad's life. You know? And that's the thing, is because if you've been a follower of the comic books, you know that there were times when Superboy versions of Superboy have had to come in and rescue Superman, just like Supergirl has done.
Yeah.
So that's something that DC likes to use as a trope a lot of times, is even the most powerful character ends up getting rescued by one of the weaker variants of the same character.
Yeah.
That's a DC thing. I think that's one of the reasons, as much as I like both DC and Marvel, I kind of gravitate more towards Marvel because some of the Marvel tropes aren't so blatant and used as much. DC has a tendency to overuse those chestnuts over and over and over again. Marvel's at least a little bit more subtle about it.
Yeah. So it looks like Inner Gang is going to be our main threat at this time for Superman and Lois.
We were given as a little bit of a preview at the last episode of the last season when Diggle showed up and told John Henry about Bruno Mannheim.
Yeah.
So we know that he's going to be at least one part of it. We know that Lois has been captured? Or was that from one of the previews I watched?
What's that?
Was Lois captured at the end of this episode?
No. The end of this episode had a guy who seemingly died get an injection at the orders of this other dude.
That's right.
And then he starts getting a heartbeat.
Right, and that was Bruno Mannheim. Was it
Bruno Mannheim giving the order?
Yes, the black guy was Bruno Mannheim.
Okay. And then there's the other guy who's got the spirally mask. I believe
flower mask.
I believe that's Onomatopoeia.
Like a rose petal kind of spiral.
Yeah.
Some kind of hypno spiral mask person.
Yeah.
And
I couldn't think of who that was exactly. I was like, somehow he looks familiar, but I can't place him. So I Googled him, and he's a serial killer who targets non-powered vigilante superheroes. His name is Onomatopoeia. He earned his name
is
because
that
he imitates.
onomatopoeia?
Yeah. He earned his nickname. He earned his name because he imitates noises around him, such as
Right.
dripping taps, gunshots, etc.
For those who
So,
don't remember their old vocabulary, onomatopoeia is the official word for any sound word, like bang, plop, and such like that is called an onomatopoeia, but most people don't know that.
yeah. And
Uh,
so he does a lot of that. He was created by Kevin Smith.
right. It'll be interesting to see where we go. There's been some previews of what's coming in the season. Plus, it's tradition to always kidnap Lois Lane anyway. So,
Yeah.
Lois Lane gets kidnapped every other episode. Uh, but
Classic DC trope.
that is a classic DC trope. Somebody's always kidnapping Lois. God damn it, Lois, we need to put a tracker in you.
Right.
But anyway, so it'll be interesting to see where we go with the season. I'm always excited. Now, I did hear that we've already been told that there's at least one more season of Superman and Lois coming beyond this one. They've assured us Peter Safran and what's his name, James Gunn, have said that they're at least going to let at least one more season go of this. So we don't know for sure if it'll still be on the CW, but we know there's at least one more season in addition to this one.
I believe when James Gunn was asked about it, I think James Gunn said, "Oh, you know that people love that show. It's doing very well. So we're probably going to keep it going for at least another season."
Yeah, he said it's got at least 1 to 2 more seasons in it.
Yeah.
So the implications, and we might even get to like season 5.
Yeah.
But, right now, it's looking good for Superman and Lois because people really like this one. On the other hand, as we said at the beginning of this show, and this will be our kind of final thoughts, Gotham Knights is getting very low initial responses from those people who have seen ahead a few episodes. And like I said, the first episode wasn't enough to sink your teeth into. So I have to reserve judgment till I get a couple more episodes in. Like I said, the most appealing thing for me in the current thing, other than Misha Collins, who I think does really good as Harvey Dent so far, is I like the Joker's daughter so far. She's given me the right kind of vibes for somebody related to Mr. J.
Mr. J.
Well, and she does refer to Harley Quinn in a brief comment, but I'm not going to give that away. I'll let you watch it to hear where she refers to Harley Quinn. But Harley Quinn is mentioned at least once, and Harley Quinn is not her mother. Just so you know that. Harley Quinn actually came after her mother, and well, you'll hear more about that in the show if you watch it. Next week we will talk about that. Now, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch Shazam yet.
Shazam? No. Oh my god. So I was gonna watch Shazam, but I realized I only had time to watch one movie over the weekend. So I was like, well, that one movie is gonna be D&D. But then that didn't work out, and so I am not watching any of those any movies in the theaters this weekend.
And I was watching Shazam on Saturday and D&D on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I actually got to see them both. So what we will probably do next week, just as a preamble, we're not going to talk D&D movie because it still won't be out yet. And there are no more previous showings so far as I know in any kind of special thing. So it doesn't come out to the 31st. That being the case, we're not going to talk D&D until after the 31st. As much as I'd love to discuss it, all I'll tell you is it's worth seeing. I won't even tell you who the secret surprise cameo is. I might tell you privately, but I'm not saying it on the broadcast. I mean, you could probably find it if you look in the internet hard enough.
I'm not going to look. I'm hoping to get. I'm hoping it don't get spoiled for me before now and getting to watch the movie.
I can keep that secret. I mean, it is. All I can say is it's not anybody that we talked about previously as being the secret cameo. So
cool.
It's not any of them. But I'm not going to say who. And you'll have to really look to see them.
Oh.
But so we won't talk about D&D next week. Not D&D the movie. We might talk about other subjects involving D&D.
Yeah. We might talk about the D&D game if some news comes up about it.
Like they just dropped a new playtest for Project Black Flag, which is D&D related. Which we will possibly talk about when Angel's here next week. But next week we will talk about Superman and Lois, The Flash, hopefully Gotham Knights, if Lurch has a chance to watch them. At least he should watch the first episode, if not the second one that comes out tonight. So that means it'll be available tomorrow on the CW. So we will talk about those. And if him and Angel get a chance this week, we will do the spoiler-free version of Shazam 2.
Yeah.
If they get a chance to watch it.
So,
if
alright.
If they don't get a chance to watch it.
Let's sign out. I am needing some water.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and sign out. I don't think we have any other big ticket movies or anything right away. John Wick 4 is getting out. 65, I'm going to wait till that comes to stream probably. So yeah, the next big release is going to be the D&D movie on the 31st. Okay, or John Wick, because I think John Wick comes out this Friday. I think it's this Friday. It's this Friday or next Friday. So we're going to sign off. Have fun storming the castle. May all your rolls be 20s or your fumbles be epic. And remember, play more games. Good night, everybody.
Night. Peace out.